Okay, good morning. So for today, we're going to have creative nonfiction again. But for this time, we're going to have module 2. And module 2 is primarily about using sensory images in creative nonfiction. Okay? So this is the reference that I use. Ginagamit din ng mga estudyante at the moment. So we could start with the introduction that the world today is often changing. So only change is constant, so never before has life been so chaotic and challenging for all, given that we are in the pandemic. Life before literature was practical and predictable, but in present-day literature, it has expanded into countless libraries and into the minds of many as a getaway for comprehension and curiosity of human mind and the world around them. So at some point, we are attributing the change, yung change na sinasabi niya dito, yung pag-expand ng countless libraries sa onset ng technology. Kasi sa technology, sa pamamagitan ng technology, nagkakaroon tayo ng numerous platforms that could serve as our virtual or online libraries, and people get to have the chance to write and even to compose their own write-ups, sharings, and experiences. But siguro, every part of our life, or every decade, or every period sa human history, may kanya-kanyang face ng pagka-chaotic at ng pagka-challenging. But it's all up to us on how we're gonna make meaning out of it. Okay? So at the end of this module, we are expected to analyze sample texts for sensory images, concrete and evocative details, and significant human experience. So, special underscore lang this is significant human experience. We have been hearing this since we were in high school. That when we say literature, it refers to something written based on significant human experience. Okay? So, our word for today is imagery. Okay? Imagery. So, when imagery in general refers to the shows the reader instead of telling them of images, details, okay? So this happens when you read kapag nagbabasa ka. Tapos, yung nababasa mo mga words leads you to imagining the written part as if you were really there, okay? You can see, touch, feel whatever through your imagination yung nakasulat, okay? So the next time you look at a picture, think about the details, okay? Colors, the texture, the background, the weather, positioning of people, the expressions, and use of these images to portray an image using words. Like for example, if we see a particular picture, you get to see the colors, and you could get the feeling that at some point is being sent to us by, or feeling or message that is being relayed to us by the photographer, okay, or the photographer of the picture, or if it were a painting, it is possible that the message of the artist. Okay. So next, so this is our topic for today: sensory images and evocative details in creative nonfiction. Okay. So according to Lawrence Perrin, poetry may be defined as a kind of language that says it more intensely than does ordinary language. So even if we're talking about creative nonfiction, let's take poetry as an example, since most of the time you could really see images in poetry. So according to this author, okay, it's Perry, 1877, poetry is the language that is the kind of language that delivers a message more intensely than how a person would say it in ordinary. Like for example, if you're feeling lonely in ordinary language, you could just say, I'm lonely. Pero kapag poetry yan, you would say that ang aking puso ay tulad ng panahon, umuulan, madilim, at malamig. Something like that. And you just want to say that you're sad and lonely, okay? In other words, poetry uses a heightened language. It uses metaphor, okay? And with that, it uses a literary device, one of which is okay? Imagery consists of descriptive language that work as a way for the readers to better imagine the world of the piece of literature and also add symbolism to the work. So, pag sinabing imagery coming from the word images, you get to see, you get to imagine things based on the descriptions given. I don't know if you have read Harry Potter, but I consider that as one of the books that has shown me the world of magic, okay? Na hindi ko talaga siya tinigilan from book to book. Kasi the book was written with rich images. Like, when you read it, it feels like even if you're reading it, it's like you're watching the movie, your own version of the movie, based on your imagination, as can be elicited from the details from the text, okay? So, imagery draws on 5 senses, which includes taste, touch, sight, smell, and sound. That's by Moratilia and Alphonse. Okay, so let's have an example. Okay, this is a poem. We have moonset at Central Park Station of St. Paul Subterranean River National Park. Okay, this was written by John Innermurti's Peach Loro. So let me read it for you. This morning, after the faint scent of sea grasses awakened me, I followed the setting moon in the reed flats in front of my bamboo cottage. I nearly stepped on the parrotfish that I caught by the loop. It was big as my slipper. I picked its tiny body and returned it to the sea. In its excitement, it forgot to thank me. It didn't even bother to look back. It swam quickly away from me. It dived towards the direction of the horizon where the moon was hiding. Perhaps in my next visit, that parrotfish will surprise me with a greeting. It shall brag to me about its scales painted by the setting of the moon. Okay. So, since we are only focusing on the images, focus lang muna natin yung images na pinakita dito sa poem na to. So, we have faint scent of sea grasses. From there, you could already imagine smelling whatever that faint scent is from the sea grasses. Okay? And then, gumamit din siya ng bamboo cottage, reef flats that will make you imagine what kind of a cottage that is. Okay? And the words that were used would give you descriptions showing how he moved. That he almost stepped on a parrotfish. Okay, as big as his slipper. So from there pa lang, you could imagine the fish. If the slipper was, if the person, let's say is like an adult, you could imagine it to be this big. Okay, then there's the sense of touch with the slimy body. Okay, and then there's even this image of addressing to the sense of sight or addressing the sense of sight using the words scales painted by the setting of the moon. So from there, you could imagine how it looks like, how it feels like to hold that parrotfish, and how it smells like. So practically, this poem managed to address the sense of smell, the sense of touch, the sense of sight, okay? That even if you cannot see exactly, there's no picture, you can imagine what's happening. And that's the power of imagery, okay? So, for the guide questions, this is part of your module, but I would walk you through what did the persona really step on. So, we answered that already. It's practically a parrotfish, and how big was it? If you would check the poem again, it was big as my slipper. Sabi niya siya na pinag-chinalas. What shall it brag about the persona's next visit? Okay? It will brag about scales painted by the setting of the moon, and you're practically talking about how the scales look like. It could be silverish, okay, because the setting of painted by the setting of the moon, or perhaps if it's setting of the moon, it should be about like dark silverish, kasi we're talking about the moon, okay? So it addresses the images, okay? So another, I chose this one because we're talking about creative nonfiction. It is just right to have an example that is creative nonfiction. So let's look on how they use imagery in this particular travelogue, okay, or travel writing. Okay. time being on a train in India. During the moments of silence in our conversation, I took a glance around the train. Hanging metal fans when it got too hot, and iron supports for when the train just jostled in a bit too hard. Ripped up gray paint, and the locals almost all men with short black hair, checkered shirts, and light khaki pants. The mark of a common businessman in India. Some people were hanging out of the train, with only one arm clinging onto iron bars near the open entryway. Every time we stopped, either the smell of pee or chewing tobacco reeked. Okay, so there. Ang dami niyang na-engage din. So, upon considering, upon reading, and upon you listening to this one, you could already imagine the situation being on that train. And hindi siya lumalayo sa napipicture nating eksena kapag sumasakay tayo ng MRT. Okay? So first, during the moments of silence in our conversation, so it gives you the idea of how silence work. It could be the concept of silence, and then from there it gives you the sense of sight images, or the images that appeals to your sense of sight, like hanging metal fans, okay, the iron supports, okay. It even gave you the idea when the train jostled a bit too hard, and then even the outfit of the usual businessman in India, you could really imagine them on that train holding the iron supports, okay? Even a few people with only an arm clinging onto the iron bars as they are near the open entryway. So aside from that, it also attended to the sense of smell, okay, which is a smell of pee or chewing tobacco. So you could already imagine, even just imagine through the imagination, you could imagine the smell, okay? Especially if you're familiar with it, okay? So the imagery is about description, where sensory details are used in any story, literary, and other forms of writing. So as I've mentioned earlier, you have practically visual, tactile, auditory, gustatory, and olfactory. Visual refers to the sense of sight. Lahat ng nakikita mo, lahat ng pinapakita sa'yo, kulay, shape, itsura, okay? Those are visual. For tactile, it's the sense of touch. Is it smooth? Is it slippery? Just like the fish a while back. Tactile, is it rough? Okay. Is it slimy? Is it sticky? Oh, yan, tactile, yan. Those are touch. Auditory refers to the sound. Is it quiet? Is it loud? Does it sound like the creaking of the door or tearing of the paper? Gustatory, in the sense of, that's the sense of taste. How does it taste like? Is it sour? Is it bitter? Then lastly is olfactory, the smell. How does it smell like? If you remember the last part, smell of pee. So that's already olfactory. It addresses the olfactory sense, or the sense. Literal imagery. With the literal imagery, you have two types of images, okay? With literal imagery, a writer literally describes things to the reader. So the writers often use literal imagery to describe the setting, the characters, how the character looks like, how the setting, what's the setting, how would you imagine the setting, and the situation for the reader. So literal imagery helps the reader picture where characters are, to understand what the characters are actually doing, and even to foreshadow what will happen next, okay? So it's literally describing what's real, what's existing, okay? An example is, they were closer to the waterfall now, the roar much louder, the rocks became slippery, the path muddy, there was a constant hanging mist, it was moving through a cloud, the path seemed to lead right into the rushing water, but as they came closer, they saw that it actually went behind the waterfall. This is an excerpt from a sample material na kinuha ko from a particular website. You can just check it on the reference section. So this gives you a picture of what's transpiring. So literally, so kumbaga ito yung nangyaring literal, okay? So next is the figurative imagery na you're trying to take it on a non-literal level or the metaphorical level. You paint a picture using words. Okay? So if we still remember, we have two types of meanings. We have denotation and connotation. Denotation is the dictionary meaning, letter D. Dictionary is the literal meaning, okay? Connotation, on the other hand, could be the symbolic, okay? The subjective meaning, okay? Figurative imagery, on the other hand, relies on connotation, and this is the implied meaning of words to help shape a text's themes and ideas. Example is, the stars in the sky were not like her smells. So you could say that even the beauty of the stars in the sky cannot match how beautiful she smells, something like that. Okay? Do you get that? Okay, good. So how to use imagery in writing creative nonfiction? So we already established earlier the kind of things that you can write with creative nonfiction. This could be travelogues, journal entries, blogs, anything that is nonfiction, of course, but done creatively, okay? So first, show, don't tell. You have to show through writing what you are trying to say. As I've mentioned earlier, if you're sad, you can't say that you're sad lang. You're just telling. So show us how sad you are. You can describe how the tears trickle down your cheeks as you feel the warmness of the tears that you could not feel from that person, from your loved one anymore. Something like that. Okay? Provide vivid descriptions that will appeal to the reader's imagination, that by giving the details, by showing the picture through the words, your readers will be able to imagine what you're trying to say. You don't need pictures, you just need the right words, okay? Engage the senses. Use descriptions that will activate the senses upon reading. So for example, imagine eating a crunchy slice of green mango with spicy shrimp paste. Imagine mo yun, Filipino. Merong ilaw na mangga. Okay, na binalatan mo, tapos kinagat mo siya. Sobrang asim niya. Tapos crunchy siya. Tapos inano mo sa, nilagyan mo ng bagoong na maanghang. So, if you felt like you're salivating, that means your senses were engaged. And if you can do that verbally, you can also write that through your creative nonfiction. Okay, it depends. Okay, and of course, it will be